Welcome to the Poll Everywhere Spring Training webinar. My name is Danny and I will be guiding you through some tried and true workflows for any classroom setting. My role as Customer Support Manager is generally to help our classroom users get the most out of Poll Everywhere. So today I'm happy to share some of the wisdom I've collected with you. For those of you who don't know, Poll Everywhere is a web-based presentation software. It allows you to poll your audience, collect and display data in real time, and spice up your presentations. We have a variety of attendees today, some who are experienced with Poll Everywhere, others just getting started. We also have both educators and corporate learning professionals attending, but no worries, this webinar is designed to serve and inspire any type of instructor-led environment. Today's training should be around 45 minutes of content and hopefully a total of 60 minutes with questions. Hopefully the majority of your questions will be answered during the webinar, but if you have any, please post them in the chat and we may get a response. You might get a response from one of my colleagues or I'll answer it myself during one of our Q&A breaks. This is me. This is a group shot from our company retreat last year. All right, so in this agenda, we're going to cover research on active learning. You'll see some of the basics about how to create a poll. We'll also be focusing on the new and advanced features that are specifically designed for or can be leveraged to improve your experience as an instructor, and also that of your participants. The content will get advanced, but if you lose track, you'll be able to rewatch a recording of this. Or you can join our free weekly intro webinar. That's every Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific. But overall, we'll do our best to make it fun. I want to take this moment to thank you all for joining today, making an effort to improve your respective classrooms. This is doing a service to your students, and in the end of the day, we all have the same goal in mind. More engaging presentations, improving student outcomes, and better and more magical learning moments. So let's go ahead and get started. So why active learning? This is a really exciting time for EdTech. There's a reason that Bill Gates is visiting classrooms of pioneering teachers, and there's a reason that Mark Zuckerberg himself promised to dedicate his fortune to empowering teachers toward personalized and active learning. Classrooms are evolving, learning methods are evolving, and 21st century classrooms are racing to be on the cutting edge of learning technology. So Poll Everywhere is right there with you. Okay, so students performing in the 50th percentile under active learning moved up. Studies show that people's attention lapses after 10 to 18 minutes of passive listening. This is where an engagement tool can be really, really handy. I know that I can zone out pretty easily, and something like an interactive poll would really help me pay better attention. 84% of students say that technology helps their professors be more efficient and more effective. I really like this statistic because it comes from the students themselves. We know that students enjoy an interactive environment. They enjoy feeling heard. They can feel a difference in their learning and growing. So that's a really good one. In the spirit of interactive learning, go ahead and take out any web-enabled device and visit my web voting page, pollev.com/Danny. This is my username. It's my unique username. You can, if you're on the assembly plan or higher, create a username for yourself that is also concise and relevant. If you have the app on your smartphone, you can use that to participate. It's a free app from the App Store. It's my recommended method for all participants, so I hope you recommend it to your students or participants as well. All right, so any web-enabled device, you can use a smartphone, a tablet, or a laptop. If you're watching the webinar, you can just open a new tab in your browser, and this will always be where you can go to do the voting today. All right, so let's hit our first poll. Why are you attending, and what do you hope to learn from today's webinar? This is a great question for the beginning of any lesson. It'll give me a second to gauge where you are, what you'd like to focus on, and some information that I can maybe steer toward or spend more time on during today's webinar. So this is an example of a Q&A brainstorm poll. It means that you can submit responses like an open response poll, but you're also able to interact with the responses of the other attendees. So if you see a response up there that you also agree with, you'd like to see, you can go ahead and upvote that. Great, I can see some really good activity here. So this lets me know, as the presenter, gives me a prioritized list of what you'd like to see today, and that means that I'll have a really clear idea of what to focus on moving forward. We use this poll type every week in our weekly company meetings. This gives us a chance to give a shout out or congratulate new employees. We can add items to the agenda that might not have been there, or we can even complain about the snacks in the snack room. But upvoting and downvoting can be really great for large groups and discussions. All right, so now that we've got those coming in, I can see that the majority of you really want to see new, cool stuff. We'll be covering a few of those. I want to know how to use technology, not just that it exists. Great. Suggestions for active learning. We're going to be covering those as well. What's great about the Q&A brainstorm poll is that actually I can interact with it as well. So if I want to discuss suggestions for active learning, I can hover my mouse over this and click on it. All right, so this focuses the attention to response, and I can X out of it. I can also pin different responses that might not be the most popular. I can also dismiss responses that might be duplicative. So now I'm in PowerPoint. I can just click the right arrow key on my keyboard to advance to the next slide. All right, this is the ideal classroom workflow. This is where in any trainer or instructor setting, we hope that you'll do to get the most out of what we have to offer. You register your participants. This will allow you to identify their responses and keep track of their results long term. You'll create a poll, and you can choose from our different poll types. You'll present that poll from PowerPoint, Keynote, Google Slides, or the web, and then you can collect those results and run a report on them. So that'll be the ideal workflow. Again, I'm presenting from PowerPoint right now. I'll show you how to present from PowerPoint a little bit later on, and we'll also be presenting from the web a little bit later on. Here are the three main methods of registering your students. We've got the LMS import. So if you're part of a university or organization that has Blackboard or Canvas as your learning management system, we integrate with you to make that a really smooth and streamlined process. We do roster integration to import your students to Poll Everywhere as participants. And we also do a gradebook export. So once you've run an in-class quiz or an attendance report, you can export that back to your LMS. And we've got Moodle coming soon. The participant group link is an easy link that you can email out to your students before class. I'll show you where that is on the website, and I'll also show you how to enable quick mobile polling, which is a really easy way to register students during class or any stragglers. All right, so let's head over to the web and show you how that's done. So here I am at polleverywhere.com. If I didn't already have an account, this would say sign up. But I'm already logged in, so I'm going to go ahead to my main dashboard called My Polls page. All right, and this will give me a bird's eye view of all of the polls that I already have in my account, some ones that I've created recently, and so on. But we'll cover a little bit more about the My Polls page in a minute. For now, let's get back to the registration discussion. I'm going to click the Participants tab up here, and in order to get that done. So this red number here lets me know the number of unique individuals visiting my web response page, so you'll know how many students are actually looking at your site at the moment. Right, so the first way to import your participants is here with this red Add Participants button. This will be where you connect to the LMS that we mentioned a little bit earlier. So if you have Blackboard or Canvas, this is how you can import your students. This link here will register participants for your account in general, but what I recommend for a classroom or for an instructor, if you have different courses or you're part of an organization where you share your account If you'd like to stay better organized, I recommend creating participant groups here. The way to do that is to create a new group for each of your courses. So let's call this one Biolab. And I can get a unique invitation code for each particular course. So Spring Course Webinar, I'm going to post that one in the chat if you haven't already registered, but you should all be in this group here. And when you follow this link, it'll ask you to register for my account. If you're not logged in, it'll ask you to register, or it'll ask you to log in before you can register. And if you follow that link and you haven't yet set up a Poll Everywhere account, it'll quickly ask you to create one, just with a first name, last name, email address. So those links are really helpful for before class your students can get all set up. All right, so now that we've covered how to register your students with the LMS and the participant group link, I'll show you how to do it with the quick mobile polling, and that's actually in the configuration of the poll itself. So let's go ahead and create some polls. I'm doing that now by clicking the plus icon in the top left corner. And I'm going to begin to type my first poll here. I'd like to ask, what word comes to mind when you think of engagement? Woohoo, I spelled that right. I always get that one wrong. All right, so here are the different poll types that I can choose from along the left. And in this space here, now that I've selected open-ended, I can choose how the responses are displayed. So I'm going to select word cloud. You can see that I've posed the question in a way that encourages you to answer in one word because it will be displayed in the cloud. If I were using a different visualization, I might ask the question a little bit differently, but let's do word cloud. It's a fan favorite and a bunch of fun. The next question I want to ask is, where are you today? So obviously I wouldn't provide multiple choices here or a Q&A brainstorm. Let's do a clickable image, and this will allow you to click on a map and let me know where you're from. If I were asking a different type of question, I could use maybe some of the template images here that we offer if you teach anatomy, astronomy, chemistry. But we're going to click on the map today, or I can upload an image that I already have on my computer. So let's go ahead and select the map of the world. And while I've got this here, I can also designate regions which will count the number of clicks in each region. I'll have the option later on to designate these regions as correct if I wanted this to be a quiz, but that's not really necessary today. Now that I've created these two polls, I can go ahead and click Create. All right, so as this display page opens up, I'm not going to activate the poll just yet. I'm going to point out a few things in this configuration panel along the right. So here, under how people can respond, you'll see that the instructions give two sets of instructions. So this is for web voting, and this is for text voting. If I wanted to, as the presenter, allow the audience to only respond via text or via web, I could do that this way. And if I wanted to use that quick mobile polling registration, I could simply restrict this poll to registered participants only. And before you could participate, you would be asked to register with just the click of a button. I'll leave it open to everybody today. Here I can also control how many times an individual can respond. I can limit this to 3 responses. And I can also choose to make these responses anonymous. I know that this has been pretty important to a lot of professors in class. They really like to encourage anonymity in the discussions or in the topics that they bring up. And so if you do want to make your polls anonymous, you can set that here. All right, there are 2 ways that I can activate this poll. I can click this activation icon or go into full screen mode. Before we do that, I'd like to just show one more thing. Here's our timer down here in the bottom left corner. So I'm going to set the timer for 30 seconds, and it'll start automatically when I go into full screen mode. All right, let's go into full screen mode, and this will activate the poll. And as the results come in, I will play with a little bit of the visual settings and make sure it's a bunch of fun. All right, so we have a lot of results coming in. As they're coming in, let's change some of these colors here. So we want to go with maybe a different color scheme. We really like the blues today. Nice. All right, and once the timer's done, you all realize that you had 30 seconds. Once the timer's done, the poll automatically locks. So you see this lock icon here. This means that no more responses can be received. You might have noticed that words that were really popular appear the largest, and words that were maybe not as submitted were smaller. So things like team and share were not as important when, as the words that came to mind for engagement as active or participation or fun. It's funny, some people were thinking marriage or wedding ring. Great. We're thinking audience engagement. All right, so again, I'm presenting from the web. I clicked in full screen mode from my Poll Everywhere account. So if I want to advance to the next slide, I'm just going to click the right arrow key on my keyboard, just as if I were in presentation mode. Just as if I were in PowerPoint. So I can hide those regions that I designated, and now you can start to submit your clicks to let us know where you're from. Oh, look, we've got some people in the UK. We've got a bunch in the US, some in Australia. This is wonderful. A few in Antarctica. Maybe we have a few Fibsters on the line. This is really fun to see. We've got somebody in Mongolia. Wonderful. Okay, so this is an example of a really good icebreaker before a team event, before a group event. And clickable image, the sky's the limit. So this is where you can show a collage of logos. If you teach architecture, you could use a photo of a building. And again, you can designate correct regions. So this can be a quiz too. If I wanted to show the regions, it would tell me the number of clicks within each region. I could also see that number as a percentage. Great. All right, and now I'm going to click the right arrow key to advance to the next slide. And this is one that I had waiting for us. So I know that we only created two, but I had this one ready. Here's an example of what would be the imagined classroom workflow within a particular poll. So if this were sensitive information, or if I wanted really accurate data, I obviously wouldn't want the bar graph of results changing and displaying to influence the responses of other participants. So I can hide those results as they're coming in, and I can use this total results counter in the bottom right corner to see if I've got the majority of results in. This is a fun one. This is a funny poll. I think we all know who really won Miss Universe. And I uploaded an image just from Flickr as the background here. And that's available to you under our visual settings icon for any poll. All right, so it looks like we do have a good number of responses. All right, so what I can do in this ideal workflow is go ahead and lock the poll. So this means no more results can come in. I can display the results. Right, you guys are paying attention, right? It was not Columbia who won, but now I can display the correct answer. Steve Harvey's the guy who really won that situation. So now that we've done 3 polls, we've registered participants, we've created polls, we've presented them from the web, and collected the data, the next item in that workflow is to run a report. So I'm going to exit full screen mode, and now I can go back to my Polls dashboard. I can do that by clicking Polls here in the top left corner. All right, so there are a lot of things that this web response page tell me as a presenter. It can give me a bird's eye view and let me know a lot of what's going on. So here I can see that this poll is highlighted in green. This lets me know that this is the poll that's currently activated. So I can deactivate the poll by clicking right here. All right, and another thing I can know from this is that these 2 polls are grayed out. So that tells me that these 2 polls are currently locked. So if you remember, we set the timer for what word comes to mind when you think of engagement, and I manually locked this one as part of the classroom workflow. So I can just check the box to the left of these two polls, which makes these bulk action item buttons available to me. So what I want to do is unlock these polls, and now I can see even more clearly the number of results that live within each of these polls. All right, so the first thing that I can do is check the box to the left of this, the group title, and this will select all of the polls in this group. And then I can put them together in their own group. All right, and now that I've got them in their own group, it means I can stay nicely organized with all of my polls here. But another thing that I can do is rename this. So I want to call this Spring Training. Great, save. So now I'll be able to find these polls really easily based on the unique title that I was able to give this. Another thing I can do now that it's in a group is just copy the entirety of the group by clicking this button here. So if I have a number of users that I'm sharing my account with, I can just copy it here, and then I'll be able to give it to them under this section, Account Polls. Another advantage to having your polls in group is the survey view. So for example, after today's webinar, I'm going to be sending out a training feedback survey. These are the polls that you're going to see in that survey, but I won't be able to present them to you one-on-one in a live presentation. Instead, I'll send that to you as a link to a survey that you can complete in your own time. I can get that link by clicking this button here, Survey View. Survey View will again just show me a list of all of the polls that were in that particular group, multiple choice and open response. I can just hit share via email or copy this URL and email that out to all of you. All right, and now that we've got these together in a group, if I wanted to clear the results, maybe I'm giving this exact training later on today, I can check the box to the left of the group title, again, to select all of the polls in this group, and then hit clear. So this will allow me to name this archive. I could call this Spring Training AM, and then the next one Spring Training PM. And then when I run reports, I'll be able to reference that exact run. We can give that a go here. So I'm going to call this Spring Training AM. There isn't an afternoon one, but actually it already is afternoon, isn't it? All right, so let's say OK. So now you'll see there are no responses in any of these polls, and they're ready to go for the next time around. All right, and so finally, the last bulk action item we'll do is run a report. So here I'm going to select report the verb and not reports the noun, which will show me a list of reports I've already created. Let's go ahead and run a report. So from here, I have the option to choose from one of our 5 awesome report types. We'll just cover executive summary and gradebook today. I think those are the most useful for a classroom setting. So let's go ahead and click executive summary. And right now, you'll see no data in this report, right, because we've cleared all of the results and it's showing what's currently in each poll. So let's go to this menu along the right that says Select Run, and then choose of the shared runs, Spring Training AM. So this is where I can choose Spring Training AM, Spring Training PM. We've just got the one for now. All right, so these will show us the number of polls, the number of unique participants, the average number of responses, and the average engagement statistic. If you want a more accurate engagement statistic, maybe you know that of the 340 participants, there are actually 361 people looking at your web response page. We can learn a more accurate engagement statistic here by typing in the audience size under the Participants tab. Great, so now this will tell me that I have a roughly 71% engagement, and that's pretty good. People really like the Miss Universe question. That's got a higher than average engagement of 81%, and I can scroll down and see screenshots of each of the poll types in this report. I'm able to rename this report, download it as a CSV, or print it to share with colleagues. I can also change the report type here. Let's try the gradebook report. We only had one graded poll today, so If I wanted to use that particular poll to run an attendance report or check for grades, I can remove the other polls from this report just by clicking Add Remove. And then I think the Miss Universe one was the only one that was actually graded, so we can update the report now. Oops. Oh, that's right, because we don't have any data in the current run. We've got to select the shared run from, let's do all runs, from today. So again, you'll want to make sure that you've got the right runs happening, you've got the right number of participants, and then you've got the right polls here. So this is where you can see a participation statistic. Maybe you had 3 graded polls. You can sort this information by grade or rank, also last name or first name. And if I wanted to see, obviously out here I can see a list of the number of people who responded and who responded correctly. But if I were doing this question for attendance and wanted to see out of the total number of people who were supposed to be responding who actually did, I could then group by the spring course webinar or my Bio 101 class. And this will show me the graded report data, not just who responded and if they were correct, but also who should have responded and who was not in attendance. You can download this report to a CSV file. You can export this to your LMS, or you can print this report, and again, you'll be able to sort any way that you like. All right, so now that we've done the registering, reporting, and exporting, while we're still on the web, I'm going to show a little bit about how to present from PowerPoint and how to get started with that. All right, so if I want to download the PollEv Presenter app, you can go to polleverywhere.com/app. This PollEv Presenter add-in is the first thing that you'll need to get Poll Everywhere running in PowerPoint or Keynote. It's a free download, and it looks a little bit different on a Windows or a Mac. So I've got a Mac today. I can show you exactly what that looks like, and I can also try to explain a little bit about what that will look like on the Windows computer. So once you download the PollEv Presenter add-in, it'll appear as an application in the dock at the bottom of your screen here, and also you'll see a button up here that's just the Poll Everywhere logo. So you want to make sure you have this installed, and also that you have the application running and living here. You might just want to search for it with the spotlight. Just make sure that it's running when you are presenting polling slides from PowerPoint. If you are on a Windows computer, this is what it'll look like for you. So I'm going to exit full screen mode here. The PollEv Presenter application will appear right here in the ribbon at the top of your slides, of your PowerPoint, and it'll just say PollEv Presenter. When you click on it, you'll see exactly this drop-down menu, and this is the second thing that you need to present from PowerPoint. You've got to log out here and log in using your Poll Everywhere credentials. So if you've got another colleague or coworker using a computer, maybe using Poll Everywhere also, you want to make sure that you log out and log back in using your own credentials. Our system has to match up with your Poll Everywhere profile, so that logging in is pretty important for polls to activate. The last thing you'll need is a strong internet connection. Obviously, we need to connect to a window into your web page in your Poll Everywhere profile. So you can just make sure that you've got a hard line or a really strong internet connection when you're presenting from PowerPoint or Keynote. So I can insert polling slides by clicking the app here. This window will show up, and this gives me the list of polls that live within my profile. If I want to insert a polling slide into my presentation, I can just check the box to the left of that question and hit Insert Poll. I'm also able to create a brand new polling slide directly from this application, which will insert into PowerPoint. So this is a great new feature that is fairly new for us and should be very useful in a classroom setting. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Insert Poll. It will insert toward the end of my presentation, and I know that it looks just like a placeholder image, but you'll see the title of the poll right here for all of your polling slides. So again, all of this is part of the free plan. Things like registering participants, running reports, those are all part of paid plans. If you'd like to access any archived data, any previous runs, and run any reports on those, you've got to be on a paid plan. All right, so I think this is where we can revisit our presentation. And again, these are the basic things that you need to present from PowerPoint. So you'll want to install the PollEv Presenter app at polleverywhere.com/app. On a Mac, you'll want to make sure that it's running in the dock at the bottom of the screen. On a Windows, you'll see it living in the ribbon at the top. You want to make sure you're logged in and check your internet connection. Then you get to insert and create poll slides. That's the fun part. If you do have any technical questions or problems in this process, you can always contact our customer support team, and I'll cover where to and when to contact them a little bit later on. All right, on-the-fly polling. This feature is available in our free Poll Everywhere app. So this is an iPhone app, an Android app. It's different from the PowerPoint app. It's also linked to your Poll Everywhere account, and you can activate polls from within this application, or you can even create polls on the fly. You can use polling to find out more about your students, and if you're getting a sense that they aren't following, or if you want a quick check-in to keep them on their toes, you can quickly and easily create a poll on the fly from your smartphone without having to create or display an entire poll. You can do this based on classroom discussion. If there's a big debate in class, you can settle it not just with a raise of hands. You can get more honest answers by submitting a poll and just say, all right, everyone, visit the web response page and tell me what you think. This is also a great way to gather confidential or sensitive information. So because the data won't be displayed only to you on your phone, the information will more likely be more accurate. And again, you can also make any poll anonymous if you would like to collect confidential or sensitive information. All right, so this is where we'll stop for questions. I've got a few coming in from the chat, so let's see what we've got here. So, which features are for paid accounts only? We covered that just a second ago. If you're on a free plan, you are limited to 25 responses per poll, and once you clear those results, you won't be able to access them again. Things like a unique username are included on a paid plan, assembly or higher. Otherwise, your username is your first name, last name with 3 random digits. Obviously, registration, reporting, and grading are included only in our paid plans. So if you are an instructor, I do recommend going to polleverywhere.com/plans and just checking out our higher ed pricing or also our K-12 pricing. All right, and we've got another question. If I've inserted a poll into PowerPoint and used that PowerPoint presentation on a different computer from the one I created the poll slide on, will the poll still work in the classroom? That's a really good question. Again, on any computer that you're presenting from, you want to make sure that you have the PollEv Presenter application installed. So if you're presenting on a foreign computer or a different computer, maybe just call ahead or give yourself the 20 minutes to install the plugin. You'll want to have it up and running in order for polling slides to work, and that'll also give you time to log in. All right, and we've got one more question. If I purchased an annual plan at 200 answers, am I able to change that to another level during the year? Definitely. You can look at our business and nonprofit plans. Maybe you're teaching or instructing a short-term training or just a week-long event. And so then you can subscribe to our business and nonprofit plans. And if at any time you need to switch to a larger plan, you can do so at a prorated rate. And you can also downgrade at any time. But all of our plans are 30-day or annual subscriptions. And we've got one last question. Is it possible to run 2 polls simultaneously? So any one account has a unique username. So anybody who's visiting that unique username will only be able to see the single poll that I'm presenting or activating at any one time. And like we saw, going into full screen mode on a poll, whether that's in PowerPoint or on the web, activates that particular question. Our system assumes that that's the poll that you are presenting to your audience. So in short, only one poll can be presented from one account at a time. So if you'd like to present 2 polls simultaneously, I recommend purchasing a sub-user account or an additional user. Or if you stick to just text message voting, you won't be able to activate any of your polls but your audience can respond via text. It gets a little more complicated that way, but we've got more detailed information on that in our user guide. I'll show you where to find the user guide a little bit later on. All right, I think we're ready to move on. All right, planning your course. Like all learning professionals, I'm sure each of you have your own style and method of lesson planning. So today we're going to cover the different ways and times polling might fit into your lesson. These uses are inspired from actual professors and trainers like yourselves and show very specific examples. I hope that they inspire you to bring polling into your classrooms in either some or all of these moments. All right, so a course introduction. Jamie Torres is a product trainer, and she likes to use icebreaker polls that are kind of fun and silly at the beginning of her sessions. She thinks it really helps to bring people out of their shell, get a nice team building or a sense of team and fun going before 6 hours of heavy training or heavy lesson. Great, we've got a lot of dolphins and cats. Dolphin is a great spirit animal. And again, the background of this poll is one that we got by clicking the visual settings icon in the top right corner, and you can just search anything you'd like in Flickr. You can just make it a nice fun background. And this is word cloud. Oh, it's so fun. If I wanted to set a timer, I could even do so from here within PowerPoint. And from within PowerPoint, I can hover my mouse in the top right corner and access these controls to either hide the results or lock the poll. But I think we can let this one go for now. Moving on, you might have some administrative questions that you need to establish or get answered in the beginning of the semester, something like your office hours. So you can use a ranking poll to give your students the option to choose between 3 windows of time that are best for you, and they can tell you which one is best for them. And that way you can have the best office hours optimal for you and your students. You might want to establish a knowledge baseline, something like a multiple choice poll. Which related courses have you taken? Oh, and just to be clear, these are screenshots. These are not actual polls at the moment. You might want to ask an open response poll, what is your major? Have you done a training course like this before? Just to get a sense of where your students are in their education, and maybe you can tailor at least the beginning of your course with that information in mind. You might want to plan ahead. So this is a clickable image poll. This instructor's classroom was particularly remote, so she used a clickable image map of the campus to find out where students needed to be next. This gave her a better idea of when to let students leave early if needed. So that's kind of a fun use case for the clickable image poll. In the start of class, you might take part in active learning or a flipped classroom. So Linda Green is an instructor of calculus at UNC, and she likes to start class with a few poll everywhere questions. She assigns a video or a lecture or learning content as homework, and then in class, using polling questions, can do an active review of the learning that was done at home. You might also want to try a daily reflection to get your students ready and prepared and back in the mindset of your classroom environment. Open questions using a Q&A brainstorm poll. Which homework problems would you most like us to review together? So if you assigned a few homework problems, you could find out which ones were the most difficult for your students, again in this prioritized list in the brainstorm poll. And this can be done just in the beginning of class while you're getting set up and students are filtering in. And by the time it's time to start class, you'll have a really clear idea of which homework problems were the most difficult or caused the most contention. And again, the Q&A brainstorm poll is a great way to quantify qualitative information. You wouldn't have wanted to supply 35 different response options here in a multiple choice poll, but here the students can give you the most important and pertinent responses. Throughout class. All right, so VG, she's a professor of statistics at UNC. She likes to ask a standard question, but then follow up to get a better understanding of how confident her students were in their answer. How sure were you of your answer? And that gives her a really clear idea of not only if they answered because of luck, but if they want to cover a concept again. Throughout class, you might try a before and after, so you can poll one question, like a multiple choice poll, cover that material, and then poll it again. It'll be really easy for you to run a report and show how those results differ. And not just across before and after at the classroom level, but if you register your students, you'll be able to see that data at an individual level and measure learning gaps. VG also told me she likes to encourage student collaboration with Poll Everywhere. So if she sees just on the fly that a particular quiz question in class or Poll Everywhere question in class, the majority were incorrect, she'll have students get together in groups and work on that particular poll together, that particular problem together until they at least get closer to the right answer. So that's great for during class time. It really helps to break it up. You might also just want to do a quick check-in. How prepared are you for class today? BG asks this on a regular basis of her students, and I'm sure that over time the scales tip a little bit closer toward A. This is a pretty good self-assessment for students and asks them to be a little bit more prepared next time maybe. You can also make this poll type anonymous, which will elicit slightly more honest answers, I'm sure. All right, so here's a poll type that we'll do in the spirit of staying engaged and awake. Are you with me? Do you love Goodnight Moon? Are you a little bit lost? That's fine too. Again, you can submit your question into the chat. You can join for our weekly webinar if this is a little too fast. And we'll have this recording available for you, just probably next week in an email. I love the statistic. 78% are with me. They're awake. Great. Cool. All right, and so toward the end of class, Brian Gibb likes to add some polls at the end of a lecture. So this would be as lecture review. They can expect an interactive review of important concepts, and so he sees this as an opportunity for self-assessment for the students. They can also earn participation points and then better prepare for the final exam. So what he does is he has an in-class quiz. He goes by question and keeps the results hidden through the whole time for 10 minutes. Kind of like we did with the Miss Universe question where you couldn't see the results. And he grades them, but he doesn't put that grade toward their classroom grade. Instead, they earn participation points. The students can later on view their response history in their own Poll Everywhere accounts and use that information to prepare for the exam. Brian also told me that he might have students give a presentation or a few students give presentations, and then in the end of class, everyone can use Poll Everywhere to vote for their favorite presentation. So we do that a few times here at Poll Everywhere as well. All right, at the end of a course, so this would be at the end of your training session, at the end of a semester, you might have a final exam. So I know one professor told me that she likes to really give words of encouragement to her students at this time. So this is an actual screenshot of results collected during finals week. So any advice or tips for staying sane? Things like good luck and you're not alone. So polling can really help people to feel comforted in times of stress. And of course, feedback. So maybe your department or your manager would like to see some feedback from your training or your course, but you can do so your own way or in your own time using Poll Everywhere. So this could be with a series of multiple choice polls. You could send out the survey view like I showed you from the My Polls dashboard, and you can also make these anonymous if you would like. All right, so here's another opportunity for us to stop for questions just before we head back to the web to cover a few last-minute tips and tricks. All right, so somebody asks, I have suggested students so far to use the web browser for mobile devices. You suggested the app download. What are the benefits for the app compared to the web browser? So I like the app because it means that I can just click on the icon from my phone. It keeps me logged in for a long period of time, so I don't have to log in each time as you might have to on the browser. That depends which browser you use, what your settings are, and how often you clear your cache, but the app is really good for remembering your login, probably the longest. Also, we've got a new feature on the app for participants which remembers their 3 most recent sessions. So if I have 3 or 4 teachers using Poll Everywhere, I don't have to type in the username each time. The app will remember it for me. And also, I think that it's a little bit easier to remember to log in as a student using the mobile app. Another good thing to keep in mind as a professor is that the mobile app takes up the entirety of the screen. So it means that if students have their phones out and they're using the app, they're not able to text or go on Facebook at the same time. So if they're doing that on their laptops, maybe if they have their phones out, they maybe aren't polling. So I like to encourage the app for use as well. Somebody's asking about profanity filters. I can show you that one as part of an open response poll. And more info on word cloud view. Yeah, we can definitely get to that. We can kill 2 birds with 1 stone there. All right, so I think we'll head back to the web, and I can cover that. And if a few more questions come up, I can address those as well. All right, so let's go to the My Polls page, and we'll look at our word cloud. So what word comes to mind when you think of engagement? So remember, we cleared the results here. If I were in front of an audience that I didn't trust so much, I could enable moderation here. So I'm going to activate the poll. We can begin to collect responses. The timer will stay the same because I've set it just once, so it'll stay that way each time. If you're looking at my web response page, you're invited to answer. Oop, okay, so what we can do is set the profanity filter, and this will censor profanity out of our response. We've got some jokesters in the crowd. Or we can block responses with profanity in general. So let's choose to do that. I also have the option to enable moderation. All right, so the poll locked, great. I also have the option to enable moderation here in the bottom left corner. So this will remove any responses that have been submitted, and I'm able to approve them or disapprove them so that one won't be approved as we move along. Obviously, you'll want a partner to do this. You can't display the poll in real time to your audience and moderate at the same time. So you might want a colleague or a TA to log into your account at the same time to do that moderation. So thank you guys for fully testing our profanity filter and moderation. All right, and so more info on word cloud. So here under visual settings, this is where I can set the word cloud. I can also change the color scheme. So because I chose a main color scheme of kind of like a light purple, I was automatically assigned darker shades of purple, lighter shades, and so on. If I wanted to invert the color scheme, I could do so here. If I wanted to change these colors individually, I would also be able to do that. I could also control the message item colors. So this is the main colors assigned to your responses. So if you wanted your word cloud to be much different colors than the color scheme, you could do so there. All right, and let's see if we've got any more questions that we can check. I see that you're using a Mac, but using an old version of PowerPoint. Does the plugin work with the latest version of Office? How about 365 Online? It definitely works with the latest version of Office, and it should work with 365 Online. For specific questions like that, you might have different configurations or different add-ins that could interfere with the Poll Everywhere app. So I encourage you to contact our customer support team if you have specific questions about your configuration. On that note, it's probably a good time to go over the last-minute tips and tricks, and then I'll also show you a bit about our help guide. So here I'm going to hit Settings in the top of my account. And this is where I can adjust my username. So again, if you're on an assembly plan or higher with us, then you're able to change your username to anything that's available in our library of usernames. So it's got to be unique to all Poll Everywhere users. You might have to think a little bit creatively, but you can definitely pick something more concise and relevant to your presentation or session. This is where you can change your email address, change your credit card information. If you have an organization name, like a university name or a company name, you can do so here. And also your template poll is what you can set. So in any particular poll, you can configure the visual settings. You can configure those, we can call them like response settings. So that would be the number of times an individual can respond. whether or not it's restricted to registered participants, and also if the poll is anonymous. If you're part of a company or organization that would like to include your logo on every poll that's created in your Poll Everywhere account, you could just create one poll and set it perfectly to your standards of logo, registered participants, and so on, and then set that poll as your template. You can choose to apply that template to all existing polls or just to the subsequent ones that you create. One question that we received is, how can you use Poll Everywhere in social media? Well, you can embed polls that you create to a web page. And something that I've seen done before is that you can activate that poll and leave it activated for up to 30 days. So as long as you have an account that can accept the proper number of polls that you expect to receive, you can leave it activated for up to 30 days on your website, just as an embedded poll, collecting responses. All right, so that's all available to you here under the Settings tab. Next, if you have any help or if you have any questions while you're on the Poll Everywhere site, you can always click Help here in the top right corner. So from here, you'll be able to choose from our frequently asked questions, our user guide, which I highly recommend. There's a lot of good information, photos, and even videos here along some of these options. We've got an EDU guide that's specific for our educators or instructors. We've got things like educator FAQs, student FAQs, and information about our LMS integration. And if you're part of the webinar today, that means that you probably learn best from video. So we do have a video guide here for you. This will cover basic tutorials, things like how to present your polls from a PC, how to present your polls from a Mac in PowerPoint, customizing your poll chart. And if you want to see the features page, these are a few more of the features that are included on our paid plans. Things like multiple account users, grading, moderation, and so on. In the wild, these are our use cases, so if you'd like a little more inspiration about how to use Poll Everywhere or how it's been used, you can check out In the Wild and Webinars. So this tab will contain a recording of today's webinar, and also it has a recording of our weekly Intro to Polling webinar. If at any point you're at the Poll Everywhere site and you'd like to contact support, you can do Help and FAQ and then this button here, or you can also at any time click this question mark here in the bottom right corner. So this will send a message directly to our amazingly talented customer support team. They're available 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. They do their best to get responses to you within an hour, but you can always just send them a quick message here, include a screenshot of the page, maybe a problem you're experiencing, and they'll do their best to get back to you as soon as possible. All right, let's see if there are any more questions. We'll head back to the presentation for now. Yeah, we've done the hip tips and tricks. And this is where I'll say thank you for attending. If you have any more questions, you can submit them at my Twitter, Polling with Danny or PollEvHelp, or again, you can email support@polleverywhere.com. We'll continue to answer questions from the chat after the webinar is over, and if you think of any more, you can give me a shout out here at my Twitter.